Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another fantastic session of Secure the DIB. We're out here by the fire with my good friend Chris, that we're going to be talking about the trail to blaze for the fun thing that we refer to as CMMC. And so, Chris, thanks for coming today.
Appreciate it.
You want to do a little intro?
Sure.
Tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Chris Huys. I'm Director of IT for Intrepid. I also do some IT consulting for another company called Astra Solutions. Been with Intrepid about six plus years now. And not long after I came on with Intrepid was when the original CMMC dropped. So it's been a journey so far.
Many moons ago, shockwaves sent throughout the industry.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned a couple of companies, one that you work for, one that you consult for,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a really interesting portfolio because we get to talk to a lot of companies, and I do specifically, and Astra Solutions being what we would call like a micro business, right? Really getting into the defense space, and Intrepid, who's been really well established here in Huntsville for quite a while. Can you tell me a little bit about the nuances between the two companies, some things you might see different, just organizationally, maybe not even necessarily compliance related?
Yeah, just Intrepid's more of a setup that you would expect with a typical small business to medium business, infrastructure-wise, on-prem stuff, cloud stuff, all that. Where Astra is more of, again, like you said, a micro, and has more of a startup and is kind of during COVID, post-COVID, and has really gone cloud-based. So, direct connect with 365 and those resources, and not really the typical infrastructure you would have with brick and mortar.
Kind of that remote first kind of approach.
Yeah.
Has that made things a little easier from a management perspective in your eyes?
Yeah, for the Astra portion, it does. Yeah. There's a lot less moving parts to deal with.
Yeah, I bet that's a little easier. I have the conversation with people. It's like large companies like Intrepid, a lot of moving pieces because the infrastructure just has to be there to support so many different things. And it's like, larger companies have money, but it's a lot harder to turn that ship, typically. Astra, micro businesses that we get to talk to, funding might be a little bit more harder to secure, but you can be a lot more agile, right? So that's an interesting tension that I think we'll get to talk about quite a bit today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Awesome. Well, let's get started on our trail, if you will. So for those of us that have tuned into Summit 7 material before, we have this fantastic thing called the 7 steps to CMMC. So we took a little riff on that, and Chris, who's actually gone through these different steps, is going to actually speak from what it actually looks like as an IT director from the very first step of identifying what level you need to be at, all the way through preparing for an actual CMMC assessment. And so I'm going to ask him a lot of fun questions. He's going to have hopefully a lot of good answers for us, and we'll kind of continue along that journey as we go. So let's go to our very first stop. Define your CMMC level.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to ask you kind of a double question here because we're talking about Astra and Intrepid.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking and when you kind of first found out about CMMC, what was your immediate kind of red flag of, hey, this might apply to us?
Just simply because it's based off the NIST 171 requirements.
Okay.
And those have already been in place for a number of years. We were supposed to be meeting those as it was. And it was something that I was working towards with Intrepid. There were some items that were POAM'd that still needed to be addressed. And then this dropped and went from knowing that we were self-attesting to we were actually going to have an assessor come in at some point and do this.
Kind of shook things up a little bit, I bet. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the interesting thing that we see is like that DFAR 7012 clause, right? That has that NIST requirement in the back end, along with like cloud requirements and all sorts of stuff. That was really kind of the anchor point to realize I need to be CMMC level 2. Mm-hmm. And that level 1 clause was kind of already out there with that FAR 52, 20421, where it's like all federal contractors should be doing this, right? Basic cyber hygiene kind of stuff, which most companies, even from an Astra size all the way up to Intrepid, have been doing just as good security practices anyways. Mm-hmm. Have antivirus, right?
Right.
Things like that. So when you were looking at that and you went to your contracts team, I'm assuming, and said, hey, is DFAR 7012 kind of like everywhere?
Yeah. And that really was what I asked, was where was that? And just make sure, we were addressing the appropriate things. Again, I went from supporting the government in a previous life as a contractor to supporting a state contract, and then I went back into the government. So it was validating I was reading the things correctly and interpreting them correctly to kind of point us in the right direction.
Interesting. How did you kind of approach that conversation with management of like, hey, we have this clause.
Mm-hmm.
The DoD's taking it to the next level. They're going to require a certification. Was it a pretty easy buy-in just because you already had that initial requirement already?
Really, because we knew DFARS was part of the clauses, or one of the clauses that was in our contracts, and knew that Microsoft had the chart out.
Yep.
That clearly stated that 365 commercial was not DFARS compliant. That was one of the driving factors alone.
Interesting.
Were you one of the campers who did not make it to Secure the DIB Summer Camp 2024? That's okay. We still have the sessions available for on demand. You can register at securethedib.us and get the slides, recordings, access to everything you need. You can also reach out to our team and then fill out the CMMC Pathfinder tool as well. So if you need access to those recordings, just register at securethedib.us. You can also find it on the Summit 7 website, and we appreciate you stopping by.